Well, good morning, good afternoon. This is Scott with ReadySquirrel.com, and today we're talking about how should I prepare for long-term civil unrest. If you hear any weird noises, it might be my dogs chasing a squirrel outside. I'm actually recording this video in a garden shed. I'm having some work done in my house, and I can't even hear myself think, so I moved my computer and stuff out here. I hope everybody's doing well. This is an article that I wasn't sure if I should even be writing this, but I'm going to try to cross hurdles and talk about things in a way where this doesn't throw any red flags and get the video taken down or get my channel smacked. Okay, so how should I prepare for long-term civil unrest? Nobody has a crystal ball, so it's difficult to tell if lawful protesting will turn violent. Once it starts, there's no way of knowing when it will stop. There are steps you can take to put you and your family in the best situation possible, but there is no perfect solution other than pulling up stakes and moving off grid. I know not most of us either can't afford to, or we've got responsibilities in one place, so we can't just do what we want. We can't just go where we want, but there is no perfect solution to this, but there are some things you can do to put yourself in a better position. And most of it actually starts with just general prepping, food prepping, water prepping, and having survival gear. So I'm not trying to fan any flames here. I'm not trying to be overly dramatic, but I think current events are too obvious to ignore. I don't really care what side of the political spectrum you're on. It doesn't really matter to me. I believe in the Constitution. I'll just leave it at that. I am a veteran. But I would ask, if you're not doing anything but watching mainstream media, I would ask you to please start looking for alternate media sources. There's a lot of young people out there doing a great job. Just start searching on YouTube. At least try to look at the other side to see what's going on. Because, I'm seeing stuff I'm watching a speech. I'm watching a politician talk, and then I go to a news source and I am blown away by what they're saying, because it's propaganda. That's what it is. So anyway, I have no problem with open, objective discussion, no matter what your beliefs are, what your thought process is. But this is really, I look at this as being for the republic, people. We've got issues when you have to be afraid of putting a sign in your yard or what you talk about. If people live in certain areas, they have to worry about wearing a T-shirt with the wrong thing on it or somebody will attack them. We got serious issues. So that's why I'm doing this article. I hope it's helpful. I am looking for suggestions for things that I missed, things that seem stupid. I did a lot of research on this, but to be honest, there isn't a lot of information out there. I thought maybe I'd be able to find some stuff on FEMA.gov or one of the government websites that would at least talk a little bit about civil unrest. But there's really not much on there. And I don't think they're using EMS or any of the emergency services that they notify you of bad weather and stuff like that. I don't think they're using that for issues like this. So what is civil unrest? Civil unrest is a civil disturbance or civil disorder, is defined as civil disobedience where participants become hostile or violent towards authority. It may lead to environments without the rule of law. Police may have difficulty maintaining public safety and order. Citizens and business owners are often collateral damage. 3 stages of unrest, and this is not peaceful protesting. 3 stages of unrest. Riots may evolve from peaceful protests, but they can also start spontaneously. So if something happens, if something sparks something off, you can just go straight into riots or rioting and looting. So a lot of times peaceful protests will be the beginning stage of unrest, but sometimes unrest just starts on its own, independent of peaceful protest. So public disorder, disrupting the flow of things around the group, blocking traffic and sidewalks, generally causing the disruption of daily events. Public disturbance, turmoil on top of disruption, chanting, yelling, singing, verbal intimidation, voicing opinions. Public disturbance is going to be, if you live downtown, if you have a restaurant or something like that, or if you have a small business, just that alone is going to lose you money. It's going to lose you business because customers don't want to walk through getting screamed at or verbally threatened. And then you've got the riot, public disturbance that turns violent and may lead to the destruction of property, physical assault, and loss of life. Peaceful protest to civil unrest. I wasn't sure what to call this section, but it was some pretty interesting facts that I got out of the U.S. Army manual on civil disobedience and disturbance. And there's a link or a PDF link to that down below in sources for this article. So if you're interested, and you can kind of go read, you can read more in depth about like what starts riots and how control forces will react, especially if the National Guard is pulled in. Okay, so most protesters are law-abiding citizens with no intention of being violent. I wanted to make that clear up front. I'm not saying people shouldn't be able to protest. I'm not saying that at all. A peaceful demonstration or nonviolent protest is a fundamental right protected under the U.S. Constitution. I don't know who said it, but it's like, I may not agree with you with what you say, but I'll die for your right to say it. I think we're losing focus on that idea in this country. You shouldn't have what you say policed, no matter how unpalatable it may be, because it's a slippery slope, and where do you stop it, and who decides what you can and can't say? Protest planners may have ulterior motives and push an otherwise peaceful protest towards violence. So a peaceful protest is actually a good situation for opportunists. Certain groups or individuals involved in a demonstration may be more willing to cause disruption, incite violence, destroy property, and provoke authorities. If you read a little bit about like the unions and the union busters during the industrial era and during the Great Depression, you can kind of get an idea of what certain organizations can do to turn a peaceful protest or to hijack a peaceful protest. Certain groups or individuals involved in a demonstration, again, may be more willing to cause disruption, incite violence, destroy property, and provoke authorities. So I personally think that oftentimes people that are a little bit on edge or may possibly outcast, people that have issues, can sometimes be drawn to escalate things like peaceful protest. So outside groups may hijack peaceful protests to further their cause. Agitators or criminal infiltrators may be planted, leading a peaceful crowd to violence. And mind you, I'm not making this up. This is coming out of the United States Army, one of their manuals I've got listed down below. Looting is a crime of opportunity. During riots, criminals use riots as a smokescreen for criminal activity. Media coverage of authorities enforcing laws and responding to violent acts may give a false picture of events. So once you politicize something, you may not be necessarily be getting the truth, and I find that worrisome, because our media coverage, unbiased media coverage, at least semi-unbiased media coverage, is a foundation and is a pillar of this country. We need that for the republic, for democracy, for whatever you want to call it. This is a quote out of that Army manual. Crowds provide individuals with the idea that their moral responsibilities have shifted from themselves as a person to the crowd as a whole. Okay, so prepping for civil unrest. And the reason I'm saying this stuff is one of the things we'll talk about down here is situational awareness. And it kind of helps you to know what might be going on around you, because sometimes I think we see things and we're like, wow, that's just plain chaos. This is crazy. Well, oftentimes people have ulterior motives. And sometimes the ulterior motive is nothing more than chaos. So preparing for civil unrest, always your best bet is to stay home. Of course, there's going to be situations where that's not the best option, like if somebody's lighting your house on fire. If the situation allows staying home in a locked building, staying in a locked building is always the best option, unless someone is lighting it on fire. You are safer behind locked doors than running around on the street. Pull drapes, drop blinds, stored food, water, and supplies are at your fingertips. So, of course, you've got a plan for that, but all your gear is in the house, so you've got access to it. And you can more easily monitor what's going on in your area. I'll talk about that down below, or you can track social media and stuff like that, police scanner. Under most circumstances, a secure building is safer than walking the streets. Leave if you must. Once you leave the safety of your home, everyone in your group is more vulnerable. It doesn't matter if you're in a car or not. If you have advance notice and the resources, lock up and leave. Get out of there before stuff goes south. A lot of the events recently seem to really turn south at night. You kind of have peaceful protests during the day, and then the more of the looting and the burning and all the negative aspects come out at night. So if you have advance notice, maybe there's some peaceful protesting going on. You've seen what's been going on over the last couple of weeks. You're thinking to yourself, you know what, I'm going to get out of here. Have multiple routes planned and know that you may end up on foot or changing routes to avoid crowds. Before you leave, pack a lightweight bag with some supplies in case you end up on foot. Avoid driving through a crowd if you're trapped in a car. If possible, turn down a side street or reverse your vehicle and go around. If there's no way to get around the car, i.e. you can't turn down a side street or back up, don't roll up to the crowd and stop. If you can, pull your car to the side of the road, lock it and get out. Or leave it right where it's at, lock it and get out. Maintain a neutral demeanor. Don't antagonize. Don't act like a tough guy. Try to remain neutral. Keep your gas tank at least half full at all times. If you feel tensions rising in your area and you can do it, fill your gas tank. So if you do have to leave, you've got a full tank of gas to drive around. You want to store emergency food, water, and supplies. Store 3 months worth of food and water. Where do they get that? Well, I'm trying to think of where we're at with some of the West Coast riots, and I think they're over 100 days actually. So enough. Basically, 3 months of food is enough to get you through a long event, and if it's not, it gives you enough time to plan. And there's breaks in some of this stuff, so you'd be able to leave. But it gives you the option to plan. It doesn't force you out of the house. If you have sufficient emergency supplies on hand, you can avoid going out, and it gives you time to plan when and how you leave. Local stores and shops might be closed or worse, burned to the ground, so don't plan to depend on them in emergencies. Prepare bags or containers of supplies for walking out on foot or leaving in a vehicle. To learn more about collecting food for emergencies, check out one of our other articles, How to Start Long-Term Food Storage, the basics. And you can just go to this article. There'll be a link below in the video. You can go to our website, to click through to the article. You want to plan your movements. Don't come and go as if everything is normal. Before you leave the safety of a building, know where you're going and plan your route. Have contingency routes in case one is blocked. Avoid going out at night. It's harder for you and security forces to tell what's going on. And a lot of the craziness seems to be happening late at night. Sometimes like 3 or 4 in the morning. Stay clear of these areas during looting or riots because they tend to be targets, especially for looters. I guess it's kind of split up. I think police stations and government buildings are hit more for political reasons, but looters are hitting retail stores, strip malls, grocery stores, big box stores, and drug stores. Just use some common sense based on what's around you. What do you think the most likely targets are, and just avoid those buildings or areas. Avoid crowds, masses, or groups of people. If a group is doing something criminal, you don't want to be associated with them. People are more likely to commit heinous acts in a group. Maintain situational awareness. If you hear a large group of people or see them from a distance, change direction, go around them, or take another route to reach your destination. Avoid approaching security forces during unrest. During a riot, police officers and National Guard members a lot of them are going to be in fight or flight mode. I mean, yeah, these guys got battle rattle on, they've got gear, but you see 500 people roll up on you and they're throwing frozen bottles and calling you everything under the sun and throwing feces on you and throwing Molotov cocktails. Everybody that walks up on that line is the enemy, and they're not going to be able to tell by looking at you who you are or what your demeanor is or what your goals are or if you're a threat. Also, riders can use you as a shield. One of the things that is often used, we're seeing it now, is they want to get clips for the press, for their own press, for their own social media. So you may not see the entire occurrence. You may not see from A to Z what actually happened. They'll cherry pick something, and to get the message out that they want to get out. And so you just you don't want to be a victim, so stay away. Blend in or gray man. Try your best not to attract attention. Be as low profile and inconspicuous as possible. If you have to leave the protection of a building, your goal is to appear average and to go unnoticed. And that's really hard to describe what this means because it really depends. It's situational. It depends on where you're at. How are the people around you dressing? How do the people in the neighborhood dress? What is their demeanor? So you want to try not to stick out. Don't wear tactical looking gear. I know a lot of us that prep. We love our gear. We love our battle rattle. You want to stick out and become a target, then freaking totally gear up. I don't care if you have a weapon and you got 4 30-round magazines. If there's 500 people that want to get at you, they're going to get at you. And let's face it, nobody wants to have to use something like that against another human being. So avoid it. Situational awareness is avoiding it. You're going out of your way not to have to deal with one-on-one contact or one-on-group contact. Wear neutral colored clothing. Don't wear cologne or perfume. Avoid wearing jewelry and accessories. Don't make an unusual amount of eye contact, not too little or too much. If you have a weapon, if someone sees your weapon, you've given up the element of surprise. If security forces discover a concealed weapon, how will you distinguish yourself from a rider? This is an excellent reason to stay in place if the riot is going all out. To blend in, you need to look like those around you, which makes you indistinguishable from the riders. Yeah, so this is a catch-22. Think of possible scenarios before civil disobedience strikes. Planning and preparation are going to be the best way to go, hands down. Prepping for this before. And if you live in downtown New York or if you live in, downtown Chicago or Seattle or Portland or any of these other major cities, you know what's going on. You probably know better than I do. What if, ask yourself some questions when you're planning. What if shit hits the fan or goes down when you're at work? How will you reach your kids if they're at school? How will you communicate with other members of your family? And where will you meet if you can't make contact? This list could be a mile long, and you're just going to have to this is just a way to think about it, but try to review your own situation to kind of see how planning is necessary for your particular situation and location and your resources. I know not everybody can afford to do X, Y, and Z. Do the best you can with what you have. Know your triggers. When will you know that you have to take action during civil disobedience? This is part of the plan. You have to figure that out. Once things are burning around you, it may be too late. Go through scenarios in your head and plan accordingly. How bad do things have to get before you decide to bug out? When will you decide to stay home from work? When will you decide to keep the kids home from school? These are all things that you want to think about beforehand. Have backup plans and alternate routes. Plan for multiple safe locations, i.e. a family or friend's house or apartment. Come up with a household plan to stay in touch if you become separated. Have a meeting place and update it depending on the circumstances. And plan for safe routes. I know I keep saying plan for safe routes, but I think it's really important in this situation. Network with friends and family before SHTF. Communicate so everyone is on the same page. Share supplies. Barter. Maybe you can't afford something, but or you can't afford X, Y, or Z or a certain tool, or and somebody else, a really close friend that you trust or a family member has that tool. You guys live close, so you can plan to spread the wealth, share your supplies. You can barter for stuff to get prepped. You can share security details. Plan to do that with family and friends. Again, determine meetup locations. That's kind of redundant. And assign tasks. What's everybody going to do if things go south? Store cash. ATMs and bank accounts may be inaccessible or located in riot zones. Power could be out in your neighborhood, so credit card machines and ATMs may not work. If stores are open, they may only take cash. Consider getting a concealed carry license and training if it's legal where you are. I'm going to leave it at that. This isn't a gun channel, so determine your best method of self-defense. That goes for home self-defense, on the move, in your car. There's a ton of YouTube videos out there. There's a ton of people that are much more well-trained than I am to give you advice. Research and acquire the supplies you'll use. Get training with whatever you determine that you need or what you're going to get. Know your local laws for the use of force. Know your local laws for the use and purchase of any firearms. Outfit your house or small business with security equipment. Install metal security doors. Cover windows and doors with exterior grade plywood, 5/8 inch or thicker. Install metal shutters, cameras, alarm. Yeah, a lot of this stuff's not going to keep people from coming in, but it's going to give you a heads up. Remove anything of high value from plain sight. Remove items that could be used to gain illegal entry. Don't leave a big concrete pot right in front of your store that can just be thrown through your plate glass window. Secure or conceal trash receptacles so they aren't lit on fire. Protect roof access if you're in an urban area and you've got ladders that go, up from the alleyways onto the roof. Lock them up. Relocate your vehicles. Don't park them outside. Stay closed. Hire security. Avoid urban areas. Yeah, some of you are going to be like, oh yeah, how am I going to do that? I live in the middle of the city. I get it. But civil unrest can and will hit small towns, but protests tend to occur in large urban areas. If you're playing the numbers game, bet that it's safer in outlying suburbs or the countryside. Move to a safe location if you can, or start planning to move. And if you can't, do all this other stuff. This one right here gives me a stomach ache. Track local news and social media. Take everything you read and hear with a grain of salt. There's a lot of disinformation floating around when it comes to civil unrest. Do your best to stay informed. These are just some ways you can do it or try to do it. Social media like Facebook or Twitter. Be aware that media has reported protests when individuals are burning, plundering, and shooting people. So read between the lines. I don't have one of these, but I really want one. Police scanner. Monitor a police scanner. If you're lucky enough to have a ham radio set up. Local news, Twitter, Facebook. Wireless emergency alerts. I don't think they're using this system for civil disobedience yet. I have not seen or heard of it, so that may or may not be something you can rely on. If you have like an iPhone, you're probably going to get those messages automatically. Keep in touch with friends in the area. First aid or trauma kit. Obtain basic first aid manual and get some basic first aid training from the Red Cross. Stow first aid kits in go packs, everyday carry bags, bug out bags, and vehicles. Have extra prescriptions on hand. Be out of the city by dark if you don't live there. I'd suggest if you work in the city and stuff's going down, you avoid it if you can. If protests are happening near your work location or near the only route to getting home, be out of the area before the sun goes down or plan to shelter in place. Everyday carry bag, EDC. This isn't a bug out bag. This bag contains just enough gear to get you where you're going. Avoid using a bag that looks tactical or that looks like it might hold a firearm. Always have it with you. Try not to leave it in your vehicle because you may not be able to get back to it, especially, let's say you work in a high-rise and you're parking your car in, a parking that's, 2 or 3 blocks away. One, you may not be able to get to it because of a crowd. Two, that's not the best place to be walking around when there's riots going on. You don't want to be in that kind of a building. Typical items in an EDC bag, personal defense items. I'll let you decide what that means. Water bottle with filtering system of some kind. Food, lightweight poncho, space blanket, paracord, a fire starter, individual MRE heaters. You can use that in conjunction with a blanket to stay warm. Flashlight, multi-tool or a knife, hand warmer, face cover or mask, Cliff bars, power bars. You don't need a lot of food. It's just enough to get you a hit of energy if you're on foot. A minimalist first aid kit and electrical tape. Store big stuff in your vehicle, like trauma kit, a large trauma kit, quantities of water, like a case of water bottles, camping gear, sleeping kit, toolbox, etc. Threatening body language is something that hopefully you won't need because you're going to avoid everybody. But have you ever watched a video where a police officer suddenly handcuffs an individual but it appears as if the person was doing nothing wrong, more than likely the officer is reading body language and knows aggressive behavior is about to pop off. So it's a preventative measure. Not everybody's going to agree with that. I'm not giving it as a judgment call. But if you've been a cop for 20 years, no, I'm not a cop, never have been. I'm guessing that you key into things like this. So here are 8 signs someone is ready to attack you. Clenched fist, clenched jaws, breathing in short rapid bursts, intense staring or glare, placing a hand on top of the head or back of the neck, redness of face, finger pointing, feet spread apart. Know thyself. Know what actions you're willing to take if life is at stake. Be confident in your personal belief system or philosophy. Determine how bad things have to get before you leave the area. Psychological reaction to stress. I don't say much here because I wrote an article on it, and I didn't want to rehash it, but stress is a good thing in an emergency situation if you can control it. Freaking out reduces your ability to make sound decisions. So this is actually a very interesting article, so go check it out. Situational awareness, used to detect... Situational awareness is used... That's a typo. Situational awareness is used to detect, avoid, or engage threats, avoid confrontation or altercations. The case of riots or civil unrest... Oh, that is a really bad sentence. I must have... So what am I trying to say here? Avoid confrontation. That's what I'm saying. And you're using situational awareness to avoid, for the most part, to avoid threats. Regardless of the situation, bugging in, bugging out, working or traveling, know what is going on around you. That's really the depth. This is a messed up section here. I need to fix it. I apologize. Situational awareness is knowing what's going on around you. So this is good advice for normal times, but especially important when tensions are high. This is a very interesting video on situational awareness. This guy is actually a risk manager now, and he's previously he was a Navy SEAL, so he's squared away and he knows what he's talking about. When we talk about situational awareness, you kind of want to understand maybe a little bit about the dynamics of protesting and rioting. 11 tactics used by rioters to defeat authorities. Situational awareness. Be aware of what may be going on in the streets around you. Look and listen if you're on the move. Avoid crowds. Avoid driving your vehicle. In the best case scenario, stay in your house or apartment. So 11 tactics. Construction of barriers to protect rioters from control force. This is all out of the Army manual. Molotov cocktails. Luckily, we haven't seen any of those yet. To cause bodily injury or property damage. Feces or urine to demoralize law enforcement. They'll throw stuff at the police or the security forces. Verbal abuse and intimidation to demoralize law enforcement. Smoke grenades to disguise action. Feinting and flanking actions. Fake frontal assault followed by an assault on the weak flank. Using innocent, weak, or young as pawns. May be moved to the front of the crowd as a barrier if they're injured. This is good press for the rioters. Throwing objects such as bricks, rocks, or frozen water bottles. Vehicles can be used to drive through a crowd or let in fire and push downhill into the control force. Fire, setting anything and everything on fire. Firearms can be used from a sniping position, using the crowd as cover to fire into the control force. Individual officers or civilians may be targeted when not in the direct vicinity of the actual riot. And we've seen that happen. I'm not going to talk about it. Explosives can be used as a diversion to kill, maim, or injure control forces or to damage property. 12 causes of civil unrest, situational awareness. I think a lot of this stuff is going on at once. I think some of it's constitutionally protected as far as the peaceful protests, and then I think it's being hijacked for ulterior motives. But that's just my personal opinion. I'm not a professional. When civil unrest starts, it can seem like chaos to the casual observer. High social, emotional, or social issues can spark unrest at any time. It's good to know the types of problems that may lead to civil disturbance to maintain situational awareness. If tensions are unusually high in a specific area, it only takes one event to light the powder keg. So, what are some common things that cause riots or create that negative environment where they can build up. Economic hardship, so socioeconomic issues. Deprived individuals may feel that they are underserved or ignored by the government and leaders. Food shortages, hunger, lack of civil authority. So it becomes a free-for-all. You have the looters coming in that take advantage of the protests, and police may be overwhelmed and lack the resources to protect the general public. We've seen that. Protests can be religious-based. They can be based on social injustice, lack of employment opportunities, poor housing, ineffective policing, and ineffective public services, ethnic differences, objection to world organizations, objection to government rule, political grievances, terrorist acts. Terrorists may use peaceful protesters as cover. A single cause or combination of causes, and this one right here, which we don't want to talk about, civil war. Okay, so that's it, guys. I appreciate you listening to me gab. Let me know if I missed anything or if you have anything, any suggestions. And that's all I've got. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you next time.